Hi, Johnny Richardson here, and today I want to talk about the most important marketing lesson that I ever learned. Without understanding this technique, you cannot ever market your business properly. You cannot market either to your existing customers or to new customers. And secondly, you cannot actually run the business properly. You can't operationally manage the business properly. We talk about the concept which we named Bob and Brenda within the second book that we wrote. But this is much more, this is a little bit subtle, it's a little bit different the way I'm talking about it now, because it's to do with how you market your business. And what it is to do is the understanding of who your customers are. Now, I'm talking about a variety of chunks of customer groups, and you identify these individual customer groups, and then you learn how to target them and work out where they hang out, and then you can start to get different messages to these people based upon who they are, where they hang out, and then what it is, the sorts of money that they're prepared to spend. So if we stick with a coffee shop scenario to begin with here, but this applies across the board in any type of business. So to an extent, if I was thinking about the types of people who would be buying our books or our consultant services, it falls into two main categories. The first category is people who have yet to set up a coffee shop. They need a different message, and they hang out in different places to those people who have existingly set up a coffee shop. Those people who have existingly set up a coffee shop have a variety of different sort of subsets within that too. You have the people who are interested in getting new customers. You have the people who are struggling to manage their business properly. You have the people who are struggling to understand the financial sides of things. There's a different message that goes through to all of those people. And to an extent, those people can be identified from a marketing perspective in a different way. So we find out exactly who they are, then where they hang out, and then we can start to profile them to an extent in terms of what they do. So we can look at the sorts of papers they read, where they get their hair cut, what sort of schools they went to, and also their kids might go to, what supermarkets they go to, where they work, and what restaurants they visit. Now there are many, many other factors like that that you need to try and deal with. Those are just a few of the examples that I would come up with for, as I say, a coffee shop scenario. And once you have identified all of these different factors that relate through to your customers, you can then establish what these customers are prepared to spend for your products. And you can, if we stick with the coffee shop scenario again, you can then understand whether people are looking for a cup of coffee at £1, £2, £2.50. It's a very glib way to put it, but you start to position these customers and their profiling within what they're prepared to spend. So to give you an example, we take a neighbourhood coffee shop, and we take three different types of customers that they might have within that. The first customer are the yummy mummies. Now the yummy mummies kind of exist as a customer group in a lot of different coffee shops. They aren't always the ideal customer that you want to have for a variety of reasons. I'm sure if you have a coffee shop, you know why those are. They make a lot of noise, they're very demanding, they can sort of tend to be very demanding over other types of customers there. But if you establish that this is one of the groups of customers that you're trying to encourage, then what you do is you establish what it is that those people want. As a general rule, you come up with some sort of an indication of that yummy mummy in your mind and think, what do they want? Now within this scenario, I'm not going to do this all for you, but we can reasonably comfortably say that they want great coffee, they want great food, but they want kind of more funky kind of food. And this depends on how affluent a neighbourhood that you're in. They want healthy options, but sometimes those are disguised to an extent. They want to think they're being healthier than they actually are. So they want a muffin that is a healthy option muffin. They don't really care if it's still got 350 calories within it. They're almost just trying to allow themselves to have the treat and sort of salve their conscience at the same time. They want food for the kids, so they want the ability to not to have to buy £2.50 brownies for their kids. They want something else at a lower price point. They want Five Alives, that kind of thing. They want cleanliness. They want that ability to, lots and lots of those yummy mummies can have a tendency to be a little bit sort of over the top in terms of the requirement for cleanliness. And one of the other things that they get over the top for is the whole organic thing as well. They want polite staff, and they want kids changing areas. Now we can extend all of those things further and further on. And from an operational perspective, you do need to keep extending all of those things on. You need to understand what all of the factors are for that group and then try and apply that into your business. The second group that we're talking about here are a little very smugly happy retired couple. And again, in a neighbourhood coffee shop, you need to be trying to target these people. So again, this is just a coffee shop scenario I'm using. There'll be different groups for whatever your business is, but stick with me for this one at the moment. The retired couple want, in general, they want clarity of menu. They don't want too many fancy sounding names for each item. They don't want too small a point size. They don't want a menu that's confusing, that might potentially make them feel foolish. They want good value. They want plainer food potentially. So they might want scones as opposed to muffins to an extent, or brownies. Now that doesn't mean you have to shift everything that way, but you need to think about how that works within your business. They want human contact. Very often, if people are past a certain age, they're looking, and they maybe that our smug couple there are still clearly happily married unless they're having an affair, and that's why they're so happy. But they potentially want, if they're on their own, they want human contact. They want to come out to the coffee shop. They want that whole community thing that we've talked about many times. They want the ability to be able to come out and have somebody remember their name, the drink that they like, and have a bit of banter. It's a very crucial part of it. And what you find is nearly all customer groups, but not all, will want all of those factors too. They want respect and politeness. They don't want to be called love. They don't want to be called nicknames. Sometimes they don't want to be called by their first names. Sometimes you need to give them that bit of respect. And they want cleanliness as well. As a general rule, nearly everybody visiting a coffee shop wants cleanliness. So those are some of the profiling factors for our retired couple and our yummy mummies. Now we move on to this fictional scenario, which happens to be beside the church. And again, this equally smug group here are the teenagers that visit after church during the week and on a Sunday. And they are a separate group themselves. In many situations, you may decide you don't want them because there's not a high average spend. But if you decide that you want to try and encourage them, you need to do a few tweaks down that route as well. These folk, again, want clarity of menu because some of these are too young to necessarily understand all the intricacies of what goes on in a coffee shop. So you need to keep things relatively clear for them. They want sweeter drinks just by the very nature of what, they're moving beyond that sort of just wanting sweets, as it were, and moving into more adult drinks. But what they basically want is actually something that tastes somewhere between the two, which is why you end up with sort of those frappuccinos and the chilled drinks and that kind of thing. It's a little bit like the way teenagers start to drink alcohol. They don't want anything that tastes of alcohol in the early stages, so they want all of those cider and all sorts of other variations of that. And they want a funky environment. They want something that can kind of compete with the chains to an extent. What a lot of that teenage group want is they want branding. They want to be able to walk down the street and show that they have spent money on a branded cup of coffee. So you need to think about all of those things for all of those groups that you've got. And as I say, once you identify those groups and the way they spend their money and what they want, you then start to think about the different channels of how you get hold of them, and you then target them. So you look at the different ways that you might want to target those teenage kids. Now clearly they're parking in their cars across the road from the church. So you could leaflet the cars, you could go out there and have somebody handing out samples to them after the church. You could actually do you could sponsor something within the church, you could put something in the church magazine, you could speak to whoever's involved with the church and see whether there's some way that they can help you within the marketing. I'm not going to give you all the ideas, but that you then break down all of the individual marketing techniques that you've got for that group. You do the same thing for the retired folk, and you do the same thing for any other customer group that you've got. Now, as I say, can't emphasize this enough, there are different customer groups for every single type of business, and this is what you go through for each one. You work out in intricate detail who the groups are, what matters to them, and then you don't try and be all things to them. So you work out what matters to those folk, and you don't try and decide that these other groups matter to you as well. You have a finite amount of these groups, and you target them very, very tightly and focus all of your marketing efforts onto those individual groups, but separate marketing efforts. So that is my biggest marketing lesson. And once you've identify the groups, then you start to move on to individual techniques to target these groups. And I'll go through one of those techniques in the next video. Thank you very much.